Linda Moulton Howe van earthfiles.com heeft een voorval uit 2006 weer van de plank gehaald. Kennelijk is het haar nu pas gelukt om sergeant David Koch te interviewen. Dit blijft hoe dan ook een zeer opzienbarende waarneming en er kan absoluut geen twijfel bestaan aan de betrouwbaarheid van de getuige in kwestie. Zoals gebruikelijk heeft dit nieuws nooit de grote gevestigde media gehaald, voor zover ik kan nagaan. Het absolute waarheidsgehalte van dit type verschijnselen wordt door het interview nogmaals onderstreept. Hier volgt het gesprek.
On Tuesday, June the 13th, we had a security mission in Makassab to check out the area and make sure there was no sign of anti-aircraft emplacements or anti-aircraft personnel up on top of the buildings with missiles and stuff, because the President of the United States was coming in on Air Force One and they were landing in Baghdad International Airport. Makassab is right along the flight path to the entrance to the runway. And we just got briefed that morning, like in an emergency session, and we're like, oh, wow, the President's coming in town. So we dropped off snipers and all sorts of stuff, and we were on standby. He came in the day. We actually saw Air Force One fly in. We saw Air Force One come in off a high spiral. They came at a very high altitude, and you can see the plane make multiple descent passes in a tight circle, and before it went into the Baghdad International Airport. And once we knew the President was on the ground, and we went back home to Red Wanion. Once he was on the ground, we got to pull back and do maintenance, because we had night patrols that night. So I got about 2 or 3 hours of sleep, and then we were out on night missions. And that's when we saw the big black triangle in the sky. That was that night in Makassab. We had lookouts on the rooftops, and we had the J-Lins from the Red Wanion Palace complex watching the roads. We also had close air support. I think there was a lot of helicopters in the sky that day, too. As far as our mission went, when we got back to the rear, the original schedule was night curfew patrols in Makassab, because at one point in time, before we ever got there, and back when Saddam Hussein was in power, the Sunni areas were prosperous. I guess Saddam Hussein's background was Sunni. Makassab was a Sunni town, but it was surrounded by a Shia-dominant city. So there's always some form of conflict in this little town. We were basically going in there on routine patrol to make sure the lights were off, the people were off the streets.
Okay, so you are how far in terms of distance south of Makassab when 25 of you see this extraordinary sight in the sky?
But when you first go into the town of Makassab, you go through a small little farming area. And I want to give you the story from the perspective of the guy in the lead vehicle, what was radioed back to me, and then what happened from there. From his perspective, now this is what he told us. He said that when we first started to pull in to Makassab that night, he was a gunner on top of the vehicle in the lead of our patrol. He told us that he saw the black triangle come over us very closely. He said it flew over the city, and it banked off to the right and disappeared. He was like, what the heck was that? And he said as we got closer to the city of Makassab, it came back around and settled right over the top of us and stopped. That is what he told us. I did not notice that. So we're back there. I'm the number 4 vehicle, and I have the interpreter with us and my gunner and the driver. I got the alert that we have stopped the vehicle, emergency stop, and we have a routine that we do once we come to a security halt. That is, we stop the vehicles dead. The gunners up on top take their weapons off safe. We, in the vehicle, scan the outside of the vehicle first with a white light, and then we get out of the vehicles and we pull a 360 security halt around the patrol itself, the 5 vehicles. We went through that motion. I'm looking around on the ground. I look at my gunner, and I said, hey, what's up? And he took his finger and he pointed straight up. And I looked up, and I'm not sure what I'm looking at. I think there's these lights in the sky, and I'm thinking to myself with a nuts and bolts common sense, when did the Corps of Engineers have time to run out here and put these up? Because that morning, watching out for the president, and I'm looking at these, it looked like a continuation of the runway lights. And I'm going, well, how the hell did they put those up? And then it dawns on me, you can't see the stars between the lights. And then it kind of dawns on me, there's no poles. And I was like, well, what in the heck is this? And so I just went and grabbed my night vision goggles. And then I got the big realization of what I was looking at. This big, huge, black triangle in the sky. It's got lights on this leading edge, about 4 or 5 on each side. And it's sitting right above it. It's not making a noise. It's not moving. You can hear the goats. You can hear our vehicles. And it's just sitting there looking at us. And we're looking at it. I got on my radio. I said, LT, you seeing this? And he's like, yeah, what do you make of it? I said, I have no idea. I have no idea whatsoever. And I was almost laughing because I was like, this can't be real. I think it was funny because I remember my gunner saying, you want me to take a shot at it? I mean, he had a 50 caliber machine gun on top. And I looked at him and I said, hey, dude, no. I said, you're just going to piss it off.
Wow.
And my mind was like reeling, well, how does this thing fly? And where's the jets? Where's the propellers? Where's the sound?
And the size that you estimated?
I estimated 4 football fields, about 400 yards.
Each side of the triangle, 1,200 feet.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is like an aircraft carrier suspended in the sky.
Well, if it's 1,200 feet on a side, it is still outside of terrestrial aircraft. And for something to be that large, and for the front gunner to have seen it peel off to the right and come around, and then be stock still in the air above you and making no sound, how is that possible?
I don't know. I have no idea. A lot of people ask me, well, did you experience missing time? Did your vehicles conk out? Did your radios not work? I said, no, everything was working great. I had my headphones on the entire time. I got no static. We had clear communication with the other squad leaders. My night vision goggles worked great. I was using ANTAS PVS 7s, which were pretty high speed at the time. I think they got something like a PVS 14 nowadays, but at the time they were the top-of-the-line night vision goggles. We had perfect clarity, and I saw it in vivid detail. It was just a black triangle. Some of the other soldiers said that they could see the reflection of the city lights reflected on the skin of it. I didn't remember seeing that. One of the other NCOs said that he thought that the lights bordering the edge of this thing were, one guy was an old cowboy, and he said it reminded me of a gas lamp in a barn. He said it's kind of like a white-orange color. Mm-hmm. The one thing I did notice, and this is really important, I think, is that when I looked at the lights that were on this craft, the lights didn't produce the halo effect that you usually get when you look at night vision goggles. Now, if you take night vision goggles, even the newest generation of night vision goggles, when you look at a light source at night, it will give you like a corona around the light source, sort of like looking at something through a drop of water on a glass pane.
Right.
It distorts the light a little bit. There was never any distortion coming from those lights, and that was really funky for me, because even the stars around this aircraft, or whatever it was, the stars have coronas around them when you look at them. These lights had no corona, like it was a different kind of element of light. It was like a solid, opaque white light, but it had no corona around it.
When you were looking through your night vision goggles at these lights and there was no corona around them, were you looking at perfect circles?
Yeah.
Some people have illustrated what they saw in cameras, and some people have gotten photographs of what looked like rectangular lights on some of these huge triangles.
Well, see, that's what's really weird, too, because some of the guys said the same thing. Some of the guys said, no, they were square. I'm like, no, they were round. I saw round. So me and the lieutenant said, hey, look, obviously there's something above us. Let's get to the orange groves to the west of Makassab, where our checkpoint was at. And I said, when we get back there, if it's still in the air, we'll call it in. So everybody jumped on board again. We revved up the vehicles, and we were screaming through Makassab. We just wanted to get to the other side of the town in order to look at this thing again from a different angle. By the time we got to this side where the orange grove was and we bailed out, we were looking back, and the gunners were trying to keep track of it. I couldn't find it again. I think somebody said it jetted off toward Baghdad. I was like, I have no idea. I can't see it in the sky. I just said, hey, look, we saw something we can't explain. Everybody's in one piece. If you don't want to be the laughingstock of a battalion, I think we should keep this quiet until we're back in the States and we can drop the bomb then. I said, but right now, if you want to be up for the next 5 to 6 hours filling out reports and being interrogated by, we call them spooks, the CIA, let's keep our mouths shut, keep from being the laughingstock, and get a good night's sleep. I'm exhausted. I remember saying that specifically. I'm tired. I don't want to do paperwork. We all agreed, and everybody's like, yeah. And they're like, well, what was it? I was like, I have no clue. I have no concept of what we just saw. Oh, was it a UFO? Yeah, it was probably a UFO. That's my first guess.